Augusto de Castro Neves, President of the Brazil-China Business Council, CEBC. It is a pleasure for me to welcome all of you to today's CEBC seminar. We find that the world today is being subject to a transition which may probably bring about a radical change in the so-called international order. The reference which prevailed during the post-war World War II international relations are no longer applicable, and the new references have appeared. Certainly one of the most important references is the emergence of China as one of the most relevant actors shaping the international order. Today's event, therefore, focuses on a topic with significant implications for the world. The new 5-year plan of China, approved by the Chinese Congress in March, sets out the government's priorities for the country's economy while addressing key social, environmental, and innovation-related issues for the next 5 years. The current edition of the plan comes at a time when China faces a number of challenges, including economic slowdown, the pursuit of greater self-sufficiency in several fields, and obviously the geopolitical and technological dispute with the United States. With this background, we are honored to welcome our special guest, Professor David Daokui Li, who will present the main highlights of China's new 5-year plan and help us understand the country's priorities for the future. Professor Li is a faculty member at Tsinghua University and one of China's most prominent economists, holding a PhD in economics from Harvard University. And he has also served in the New Development Bank and the International Monetary Fund. Has been a member of the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference, the country's leading advisor body. We are also pleased to have with us Fabiana D'Atri, Chief Economist at the Bradesco Asset Bank and CEBC Director of Economics, with over 15 years of experience specializing in the Chinese economy. She will moderate today's discussion and share her perspectives on the implications of the new 5-year plan for Brazil. At the end of the event, we'll have a question and answer sessions between Professor Li and the audience, during which participants are invited to submit questions via the Zoom Q&A tool. We would also like to remind you that the questions should be brief and in English. That said, I would like to thank everyone who are watching us, and especially Professor David Daokui and Fabiana for their generous and most valuable contribution. Professor Li, the floor is yours. Professor Li? Your microphone.
Oh, yes. Oh, thank you very much, Your Excellency, Ambassador De Castro Neves, and thank you very much, Claudia and Fabiana, for organizing this highly interesting and timely event. I am truly honored to start the discussion about China's 15th 5-year plan, and I will be relatively brief, leaving time for your questions and also leaving time for Fabiana, my good friend, to talk about implications of China's 15th 5-year plan for Brazil. Okay, so let me first explain to you, obviously, there are 3 pieces of very important facts as background of this 15th 5-year plan. And I knew this. I am a member of the 15th 5-year plan. I was also a member of the 14th 5-year plan. So I was engaged, I was involved at the early stage of the drafting of the 15th five-year plan, the three very important background information, of course, is number one, geopolitical development, okay, which has become more and more intense since we started the process of 15th five-year plan. The second is technology. About 4 years ago, AI starts from nowhere, and now AI has become the most hotly debated topic in science technology. The third background is the Chinese economy needs to make adjustment, and everybody in China understand this. We all understand the Chinese economy needs to have fundamental changes in order for the economy to be sustainable, okay? So against these three pieces of facts as a background, let's talk about the main themes of the 15th five-year plan. Then we talk about the implications. Then we'll talk about the specific items of the 15th five-year plan. The three themes of the 15th five-year plan in terms of order of importance, okay, are the following. Number one, technology, okay. As a big surprise to many people like myself who are involved at the early stage of the 15th five-year plan, technology, rather than domestic demand, became now is already the number one job, the top priority of the 15th five-year plan. That means that the country, under the leadership of our president, is now bending on making sure China will be able to co-lead, if not leading, with the US in AI technology. And why is this? A super simple reason. The super simple reason is that China's leader, top leader, understands that the AI competition is a life and a death competition. If you talk about US-China, China-US competition or collaboration, then in the minds of our top decision makers, the most decisive force is technology. And in technology, the most important technology is AI. So the underlying argument is that China shall not and will not lose in the competition of AI. If China loses the competition in AI, national security will be jeopardized. Notice, I remind you, this judgment, this conviction was already super clear at the early stage of the planning of the 15th five-year plan about 2 years ago, maybe 2.5 years ago. This is before Iran. This is before Venezuela. This is before the US using AI to help to do many things in Iran. Okay, so looking back today, after Venezuela, after Homs, the Homs Street, after Iran crisis, is super clear. I think these people with the benefit of hindsight, this top priority is well set. Okay, that's number one. So the official language in the 15th five-year plan is that China will do everything to remain self-reliant in science and technology at high level. I repeat, China should and will remain self-reliant in science technology at high level, not low level, high level. Okay, so the second keyword of the 15th five-year plan, or second theme of the 15th five-year plan, is industrial upgrading. Industrial upgrading. That is, China wants to keep on moving up in its industrial ladder, in the industrial ladder. Okay, so China wants to upgrade its industry in order for the economy to be able to grow in the long run, because the argument, the underlying argument is that if China cannot keep on upgrading its industry, then the Chinese economy will lose its competitive advantage. The newcomers like India's, like to some extent like Brazil and like some Central European countries will catch up. China will no longer be able to maintain its current status as one of the fastest growing economies in the world. So the second theme is industrial upgrading. The third theme, or third keyword, is domestic demand. China, in the 15th five-year plan, China should increase its domestic demand, okay, meaning domestic consumption plus domestic investment. Domestic investment plus domestic consumption combined in the Chinese language of documents is domestic demand. And the official expression in this regard is called the unified large market, or a large unified market in China. That is, China needs to promote a unified large market in order to promote domestic investment, in order to promote domestic consumption. And underlying this, there are a lot of detailed policy items. Now, with these three themes in mind, let me talk about the details. Okay, the three themes, let me repeat, are technology, self-reliance, industrial upgrading, and domestic demand. So, what are the policies regarding promoting Chinese? Okay, I see a sign of my connection not being good. Are you okay? Audio-wise, video-wise, are you okay? Are we okay?
Yes, Professor,
okay,
it's okay.
Okay, good. Let me continue, okay? So for what are the policies for technology upgrading? So China, in the 15th five-year plan, will provide more incentives for university professors to convert their scientific research into technological applications. So they will have more avenues to register companies and to list their companies in the stock market. Okay, so one of my colleagues at Tsinghua University just did the IPO of China's #1 AI company, and that AI company is now growing very fast in market value. It's growing very fast, and he himself is able to get, in essence, a lot of shares, 30–40%, but of course through some channels. And this is a sign of special arrangements. Before, it was not allowed. Before, Chinese university professors are not allowed to keep large shares of their companies to be IPO'd in the stock market. This also means that in terms of promoting technological progress, this also means that various local governments are giving green lights to use their own investment funds to invest in startups. This also means that Chinese stock markets are much more welcoming to high-tech companies to be listed in the stock market. This also means that Chinese companies within high-tech companies are having easier time in getting investment from overseas. So all lights are green when it comes to high-tech companies. All lights are green when it comes to AI technology. Okay, so you may ask, I'm sure you have in your mind a question that is, what if the employment problem becomes worse? What if unemployment becomes a bigger problem? What if the AI technology replacing traditional jobs like taxi drivers, like accountants, like journalists? Okay, so the answer is yes. The Chinese policymakers in closed-door sessions are very much aware of this, but their attitude is following. We will worry about this later on. But today, we have no choice but pushing for better technology. So let's worry about unemployment problem later on. So what are the possible policies dealing with unemployment of young college graduates? Very simple. One option is for Chinese universities to have continuing education programs for college graduates who are not able to get jobs. So let these students keep on using their university IDs. Let them use university facilities, help them get housing nearby, and organizing them into groups of studies, and help them organize events among themselves as if they are still college students. Okay, this is called postgraduate training programs. So these are already under debate. These programs are already being debated. Okay, so that's number one, technology. So with regards to technology, everything is possible. Job number one in today's China is technology, because the general conviction, the general belief is that we, the human society, we are at the inflection point. We are the inflection point. Countries or nations who are able to capture this opportunity of technological progress will get a vantage point down the road. Countries who are not able to get this technology will be at the mercy of the leaders. Okay, so leading countries. Number two, specific policies is about promoting industries. Okay, we're talking about industrial upgrading. So let me give you a list, very specific, 3 lists of industries. Okay, the Chinese 15th five-year plan listed 3 groups of industries. 3 groups. Okay, the first group is called traditional industries. These traditional industries will be pushed to upgrade in their technology, will be encouraged to use new technology. Okay, who are they? They are the mineral industry. They are the iron and steel industry and non-ferrous metal. They are the chemical industry. They are the light industry making goods, consumer goods. Okay, they are the textile industry. They are the machinery industry and the shipbuilding and construction. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, 8. Okay, mineral industry, iron and ore, non-ferrous and non-ferrous metal as 1. Okay, chemical, light industry, textile, machinery, shipbuilding and construction. Okay, construction. So the direction for them to upgrade is to become higher, to move up in the value chain, to become more intelligent, to use green technology, to have more service, and to have green production, and towards service-oriented manufacturing. The second group of industry, okay, the first group is traditional industry. The second group of industry is called emerging industries. There are 6 emerging industries listed in this 15th five-year plan. Okay, let me read them one by one. Okay, one by one. Then they are the next generation information technology. The next generation, the new generation of information technology. Okay, the new energy, new material. Number 3, number 1 is next generation of information technology. The new generation of information technology. Number 2 is new energy, okay, including hydrogen. Number 3 is new material. Number 4 is intelligent and internet and intelligent and interconnected new energy automobile. Number 5 is robots, R-O-B-O-T. Do I pronounce it right? Robots. Okay. Number 6 is pharmaceutical. Biological pharmaceutical. Number 7 is high-end industrial equipment. These are like harbor in the machinery for harbors. Okay. And number 8 is aerospace. Okay, aerospace. Okay. And for them, the government will, okay, the key policy is to have showcase industries, exemplary, showcase industries, showcase companies. They will identify showcase industries and showcase factors to lead the development. Then the third category of industry to be worked on, in addition to traditional ones, emerging ones, the third one is called future industries. Future industries, that is the industries in 10 years. 10 years later may become important, okay? That is 10 years later, China wants to occupy the vantage points in these industries. Who are they? 6. They mentioned 6 of them, okay? They are the quantum technology, like quantum communication, okay? Number 2, biological manufacturing, okay? By this, I mean, it's not a pharmaceutical, but biological manufacturing. I believe, I'm not totally expert in this area. Biological manufacturing, I believe, is to use biological techniques to produce goods, or even to use biological technology to produce some of the agricultural products. Okay. Number 3 is hydrogen and nuclear fusion. Okay, the fusion tech, the fusion. I'm sure you know this. You know what I mean, okay? Nuclear, hydrogen and nuclear fusion energy. Okay. Number 4 is brain nerve connection. I'm not sure I use the proper English word. The brain, human brain connection. I'm using the wrong word. Okay, the brain, the human brain interaction, human brain interface, machine and the human brain interface. Number 5 is human-like robots, like human face, like your hands, your face, your voice, human face. Again, I'm not sure I'm using proper language, but I'm sure you know what I mean. Okay. Number 6, and the final one is the 6th generation of mobile communication, 6G. Okay, now we're using 5G, right? 6G in 10 years, 6G communication. So what's the policies to promote these 6 industries? It says that it wants to use, again, illustrative or showcase engineering projects. It wants to use future research centers of the national research centers to identify feasible technologies, and also to dynamically recognize future industrial directions. In other words, these 6 industries listed may not be the final ones. The government wants to dynamically, constantly readjust this list of future industries. Okay, so this is a second cluster of policies. Okay, the third cluster of policies regarding domestic demand are the following. That is, the government says we will continue our policy of investing in human beings as opposed to investing in infrastructure. The future of the Chinese policy will be investing in human beings. Specifically, in our language, in language you understand, is to beef up healthcare, beef up preschool education, to beef up basic housing, to beef up, to strengthen unemployment subsidies, to strengthen pension for worker, for retirees. Okay, in other words, social welfare. Social welfare expenditures will be the future area of public expenditure, moving from infrastructure to social welfare. So there are many policies in this regard. Okay, in this regard. So these are the main things. Final thing. Okay, instead of talking about implications for Brazil, I will leave it to Fabiana to talk about this. Let me mention final thing. Then I move to the floor will be given to Fabiana. The final thing is that the policymakers this year are very clear. They are not willing to push for GDP growth rate this year in the short run. They are instead trying to slow down a little bit the GDP growth in order to make room for structural changes. The understanding is that, the thinking is that the world is changing. The world is very complicated. The world is now under many forces, right? Including President Trump, is now very volatile. So before we can see through things, okay, let's slow down. Let's slow down, okay? Let's make sure we can make adjustments. It's like me riding motorcycle. I'm a motorcycle fan, okay? If I run through rugged areas, if I run through very rugged, very uneven roads, I slow down. I give power to my motorcycle, but I don't stop. I don't stop, but I keep on pushing. Vroom, vroom, vroom. That's today's Chinese economy. The target is 4.5 to 5%, the lowest since 1991. The underlying logic, the underlying thinking is to make room for adjustment, to make room for the first year of the five-year plan of in 2026 to be of good start. Let me stop here. The floor is yours, Fabiana. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. I'd like to spend all my morning listening to you, Professor. Thank you for your first considerations. I just have some words exploring actually what you said and how I understand that Brazil should watch and move on those information. So, and we have a lot of questions, so I'll be brief. The first thing is, while I was listening and in the last decades that I'm learning from planning, I think the first message for Brazil is to learn from China. China never stops, besides the fact that usually we have this kind of a stability message. In the end of the day, China is never stable. China is always moving on. When you mentioned the traditional industries, what's going on and what will happen in the next 10 years is not stability. So Brazil, for me, the first thing is to learn, to get those messages, because usually people say, I don't know what's happening in China. Everything is written, so we know what's happening in China. Where is China going forward? As this is true, my second message is how Brazil can engage with China. Your message is really clear. There is, if we are apart, we are not going to be the leaders, and it's better to be with the leaders. So all the actions from the public and the private sector must be engaged with all actions in China. It's not a competition, it's a cooperation, and it's how we can collaborate. And in that sense, I'll get three main topics. One is when you bring us as the main message from the plan, the next 5 years, is related to upgrade industries. And when I have here in Brazil a big gap comparing technology from China and Brazil, I understand that what we should do here as a policy is to bring Chinese companies to Brazil, not only the Chinese products, because I understand that the way we can engage and learn from all this upgrade technology is to have the Chinese companies playing Brazilian market. That's why it's more than a trade partner. We should strengthen this partnership on investments to have the Chinese companies producing, transferring technology, teaching Brazilians. And then I do believe that this is an answer for these big questions, how Brazil can improve our gap from technology. So it's, again, much more than competing, much more collaborating, cooperating. And recently, some Chinese companies have arrived in Brazil, and I understand this is the way. So it's much more than export and import, and more than producing and investing here in Brazil, having local partners and developing both markets. The second question is a kind of a provocation, more for the Brazilian audience. When you mention the self-reliance in China, and it's really clear in maybe large part of the sectors. And my question is where Brazil enters in this equation. If China is moving on self-reliance, self-sufficient in many products, Brazil is a significant and important source of products for China. Where Brazil must be aware, and maybe this is a question also, where should we be aware that maybe we are going to lose markets, or how those markets will be developed? Because once China has decided to produce everything by itself, how they are going, how the world, in the end of the day, how Brazil will offer our products to China. And my main concern is related to agricultural products. So how China is developing this mentality of self-reliance that is really clear for technology that you mentioned, technology, especially in this kind of AI race that we have nowadays, but going beyond, for example, on commodities and agriculture, how Brazil must be aware or be worried about those strategies that are going on in China. And the third consideration is how Brazil can explore the domestic consumption, the Chinese market. We know for a long time that we are discussing how to improve consumption in China. It's clear that the mentality from supply to demand is moving smoothly, is not leaving the supply-oriented policy that China, that Beijing has, but also plug and adding some consumption or demand driven policy. And if it's true that the domestic demand will improve, will upgrade, will diversify not only from goods to service, where do you see opportunities for Brazilian companies to explore those markets that will be developed or improved? And maybe with the upgrading in income, the Chinese becoming richer, which kind of products, not only service and goods, but also food, should we see new opportunities? And I will finish in coming back to my first consideration, that we need to engage. And I understand that university research is the best that we should do yesterday. This kind of engagement of research, because it's clear that China is moved by science, technology, and it's all research. It doesn't come from anywhere. It comes from studying, investing, university, and this make money. China maybe is the best in the world to put market for all technologies, to create and to monetize what they are investing. Usually you have research and you don't make money with that. China can make money. So I think this kind of exchange in university in research is something that we are not enough engaged with China. This is my opinion. So I'll stop here. Just want to listen this kind of gaps that Brazil and China can close, especially considering our connection in investments and markets. I will stop here, and the floor is again yours.
Thank you very much, Fabiana, for these wonderful insights. Okay, let me be very brief. Okay, actually, my keywords, the keywords I would like to use to address these very important issues and the questions is communication and better communication. Okay, that is China. China is a country where leaders and the people also on the people on the street very much treasure respect. Meaning that China is a little bit like Iran. I don't know how much you know Iran. I'm learning about Iran. Iran is a country having long history, thousands of years of history, but for the past 150 years, didn't do so well for many reasons. China, similar, very similar. We have thousands of years of history. For the past 150 years, we didn't do well. Okay, until 50 years ago. Okay, so people are leaders and people are sensitive. They are sensitive. They are willing to work with the USA, with Europe, with Brazil, but they are very unhappy when they hear President Trump or other leaders in Europe criticize openly China. Okay, so the key is effective communication. Come to China or communicate with Chinese leaders or business leaders. First, to tell them that Brazil is one of the best friends of China. Brazilian companies are the best, are the most friendly companies with China. And then you make your suggestions. You make your business proposals. You even subtly criticize. Fine. Okay. So this is number one. This is number one thing. You make your request after behaving like your Excellency, Ambassador Nervous, right? Right. You have to be diplomatic dealing with China. Okay. This is unlike European countries. European countries, Americas can be very upfront. The Israelis can be very upfront. Okay. I'm talking about the style. Now, following this, let me explain. The policy of self-reliance is mainly referring to technology. And this phrase, self-reliance, is mainly referring to China. China used to be heavily reliant upon the USA. I myself went to USA when I was 22 years old, when I studied in a US university. Many of my colleagues studied in the US. We used many American software, right? Software in designing buildings, in designing computer chips, right? In writing PPT until maybe 5 years ago. Now we no longer use Microsoft PPT. We use Chinese WPS. Okay, almost the same as the Microsoft, the works, right? So the phrase self-reliance mainly refers to this phenomenon. That is, we are too reliant upon the USA, not Brazil. Okay, so don't get me wrong. Mainly technology. Okay, so that China wants to be technologically self-reliant at a high level. That meaning that we need to have our own software. We need to have our own university publication system. We need to have our own economic thinking. We have our own economic journals. That's the context. Okay. Now, finally, on your question of exploring domestic consumption, yes, Chinese domestic consumption is moving up. We have a large roughly between 400 and 500 million middle-income people. 400 to 500 million middle-income people who are very, very, very conscious of health. The Chinese people are very, very conscious of health. If comparing people of similar income, we are very careful people. We don't drink as much Coke as maybe Brazilian friends. Okay, so for whatever reason. Okay, so here comes many opportunities. Okay, so please, our Brazilian company friends, please establish connections and visit China and try to work with a Chinese counterpart, try to set up a brand, try to convey a message that Brazilian agricultural products, many Brazilian products are healthy and authentic, right? Your beef and your famous beef, okay? Your beef is authentic. Your beef is healthy. Your soybeans are healthy. Your many products, okay? Try to establish this brand, this image in Chinese media with social media, with the social media help, right? You may even make a movie. You know, movies are important. Movies are super important for a country. If there's if you can jointly produce a Chinese movie with Chinese and Brazilian actors talking about their traveling in Brazil and making it a big ticket box movie in Chinese New Year, then the country of Brazil will be well established. Everybody will know, okay, for healthy products, for healthy style, for healthy lifestyle, I go to Brazil, just like Brazilian soccer's, okay? Brazilian soccer team, okay? Right? Just like Brazilian soccer players. There are many of them in China. They're doing well. They're doing well. So for soccer, you already established a very good reputation, very good brand. For other goods, come to China, make public awareness, and you will do good business with China because we are a large country. We have lots of consumers. Okay, so let me stop here. Thank you.
Thank you. It's clear enough, and the messages and some tips for a lot of our audience that is looking for opportunities. I'll move to some questions that we have from our audience. I'll join two questions that is something that I also thinking about, that if you consider the previous 5-year plan, it was really strong, the emphasis on renewable, green economy, wind and solar power. And in this new plan, it's not so clear. So may you help us to understand, is there a place for a green economy in this new 5-year plan? Which kind of technologies related to energy will be explored in the next 5 years?
Yes, very good observation. Very, very good observation. Yes, the priority has a little bit changed, has changed a little bit from purely green to high tech. As I said, high tech is now the top priority because it's a life and death issue for China. So relatively speaking, green technology is pushed to the back burner. Okay. However, there's one important connection. That is, China wants to be more self-reliant in the crude oil consumption. In the crude oil, China consumes 700 million metric tons of crude oil, which is 700, which is almost 50,000 of 5,000 millions of 5 trillion barrels a year. 73% of it comes from abroad. And 1/2 of the imported crude oil goes through the Strait of Hormuz. This is a very severe situation for China. China has on about, everybody believes, 3 months of supply of reserved oil domestically. It is a big issue. So today, the top priority is make sure how can China produce a substitute of crude oil domestically. The answer is methanol. Methanol, not ethanol. Ethanol, you know, where you use, you know, the difference, right? Methanol is from coal. Coal combined with hydrogen, okay, produce methanol. Methanol can replace diesel engine right away, very easy. And the methanol can also replace crude oil as the source, as the starting point of petrochemical industry, right? Methanol technology is ready in China. Now, I've been talking about this for almost 5 years in China. I'm a big fan of methanol, okay? Methanol. So methanol is half green. It's not completely green, but it's half green because it combines C carbon with hydrogen. Hydrogen is obtained through electrolyzing water by using green electricity from solar panels and from windmills. So the short answer is yes, the priority is shift from national economic security, from green to national economic security. However, there's a little bit intersection. The intersection is methanol. Methanol is half green. It's half green. It's greener than coal, but it's dirtier than solar powered electricity.
Clear. I remember once we discussed it about methanol. I'll move to another topic that is related to domestic demand. There are some questions. I think that what people would like to listen is how those domestic plans, you mentioned the social welfare, but how is there any target for income increase? How China is touching and addressing some inequality, especially in different regions in China. So may you help us to understand the strategy or the targets, just to touch or have a horizon? Of course, the plan is 5 years, but sometimes you see some rush or some smooth in those strategies.
Yeah, very good question. Let me tell you a little bit, not I wouldn't say a national secret, okay, but a little bit the information which is not suitable for publication, okay, for journal for media publication. As a member of the 15th Five-Year Plan Committee, myself, together with many fellow economists, we were pushing for specific targets to be announced in the plan to include social welfare, right? So we are pushing for this. So for example, some of us, including myself, pushing for a target saying at least 50% of government budget to be used for social welfare, right? However, it's not in the final draft. So we lost the argument, okay? Well, I lost argument domestically, internally. Now, why? I think the thinking of the top decision makers are the following, okay? Is the following, that they believe that that the population shall not be given too high expectation. They are aware of the situation in many countries, perhaps including Brazil, that is, politicians promise a lot to the population. The population wants to have more and more welfare expenditure, and then the budget is out of control. Right? So our government, our top leaders want to do practical things on the ground as much as possible without pre-announcing them. Okay. Now, this being said, let me tell you specific policies are being put in place. Okay. Number one, increasing the pension of retirees in the countryside who are very low, who are very miserable in income. People, my generation, I was born in the year of 1963, okay? My counterparts in the countryside, in the rural area, have already retired, okay? They are reaching 63, okay, 60, right? So they are no longer working in the formal sector. They are no longer working in construction sites in cities. So they get a pension. How low is the pension? The pension is very low. The pension is now around $500 a year, just over $1 a day. Too low. So me, again, I am arguing very hard in my social media. I have 5 million followers in my social media, okay? I argue strongly that we need to give them more money, because these people who worked very hard, who build our railroads, who build our airports, who build our high-rise buildings in cities, who are now retiring in the countries. Many of them are miserable. I mean, you are my friends, so I don't hide the dark side of China. Many of them commit suicide when they get ill, because they don't want to become liabilities to their family. Okay, very miserable. So I'm pushing hard. I push the government to increase this pension level by five times. Easy. We can do it. We can do it. The government can do it, starting with people who are over 70 years old. Okay, we do it by stage. There are 120 million of them, these people, right? The other area of social welfare expenditure, which the government is more willing to spend than on a pension on the retirees, is on women who are having second baby, or first baby, second baby, third babies. Okay, give them lots of subsidies. This we are working hard. I mean, the government is now very willing to do. Okay, very much willing to do. They hike up, they pile up welfare for these people, and also for preschool education, they are piling up welfare. And what else? And medical compensation increased a little bit. Okay, so these are the main areas.
Clear enough, and it's interesting how these debates are happening in China for a long time. I remember we discussed it also, consumption and the strategies, and sometimes it's like it's the third priority, but it's still going on. I have more questions here, and one of them is, it seems that everything is written, everything is under the plan, but in your view, what are the biggest risks and challenges for this kind of implementation? And is there any connection with the global environment?
Yes, okay. What are the biggest risks? Okay, let me list from immediate to a little bit longer run. Okay, the immediate risk is the Middle East crisis. The Middle East crisis will be the immediate threat, because as I said, 73% of China's crude oil consumption comes from overseas. 50%, one half of the imported crude oil comes from that narrow street, the home street. If the crisis of the home street lasts 2 more months, the Chinese economy will be in trouble. We will have rationing of gasoline. We will have rationing quotas for our diesel trucks. Okay, this is the biggest risk. Now you may think, oh, why not from Russia? You guys in China have been working with Russia on free terms for many years. Not enough. Russian crude oil only accounts for at most 15% of China's crude oil, 15, okay? Not enough. This is the immediate risk, okay? Immediate problem. Okay, when that time comes, I think China will crank up right away its production of methanol, and also production of the traditional coal-based gasoline. We have coal-based gasoline, traditional technology. which is extremely expensive and water intense, consuming a lot of water. Okay, the South African technology, right? The South Africans used to convert coal into diesel, right? Remember that? That we have, but it's super expensive. But China will have to start that one very quickly. Okay, if the crisis in the Middle East does not subdue. Okay, now this long-term crisis, the long-term risk is the following. Again, I in China have been I have been working on this for many years. You know my views very well. That is, local governments are heavily in debt because they were the investors of railroads, of new cities, of airports, of highways. They are heavily in debt, so that they are not willing, they're not able to provide social welfare. Instead, they are taking extra tax revenue from many enterprises. Okay, they are the big hole, black hole of the universe of the Chinese economy. Okay, the central government needs to beef up its issuance of debt. Our central government debt is only 30% of GDP. Our local debt is 100% of GDP. There is a strong need to do this swapping local debt by the central government debt. The central government is the richest central government, the wealthiest central government in the world, having about 80% of GDP in the shares of consumer bank, commercial banks, so on and so forth. So if this is not done, GDP growth rate will keep on sliding down. If this is not done, GDP growth rates will keeping on sliding down. Now, are you with me? I'm worried about my connection.
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay,
You are with
okay.
us.
Wonderful,
and
wonderful.
maybe
So let me end here. So this is my biggest concern. The GDP growth rate will keeping on sliding down if local governments are not rejuvenated. Local governments are the biggest players in the Chinese economy, more important than enterprises. They are big spenders. They do many things, okay? Local governments are huge, are large. This is the biggest risk. This is the thing keeping me from sleeping at night.
For a long time. This is the problem, but it is still going on. I will finish with two questions that I'll put together, and they are related with this connection with China and the world, in the sense that in this high efficient economy, high upgrade, I understand that China will need the external markets to sell the products, to open new factories. So how do you see this kind of exposure to the external market? And we know all the challenges related. And in that sense, do you see also any movement on opening the capital account, opening this kind of financial flows? Or do you see this is not a priority? So those exposure to external markets for the products, and also the external market as a source of financial flows, international flows.
No, Fabiana, to reverse my answer, let me talk the second question. No, there will not be liberalization of the capital flow. There will only be gradual relaxation of capital flow. The fundamental reason is that overall, Chinese policymakers are very cautious. And in particular, today's top leader is a very cautious, meanwhile, very ambitious person. He is a believer of order. He is a believer of gradualism. He is a believer of stability, right? If you watch him on TV, his mannerism reminds you of this kind of personality, okay? He's a good friend of your president, your current president, Lula, right? But in terms of personality, in terms of style, they are different. Lula is highly energetic. Lula is very energetic, right? Also, like your former president, Rousseff, she is now in China. She is now the head of New Development Bank, NDB. right? Both the former President Rousseff and the current President Lula, maybe as well as the former president, all are very dynamic people, very energetic, very intense people. Our leader is very cautious, stable, in a good sense. Okay, I'm not saying any bad things about anybody. Okay, it's good things in good sense. He's person emphasizing stability. So he would not rush into financial opening up. Okay, and also he is very much in control of all these detailed decisions. Now, our first question: how do China deal with the huge reliance of Chinese products upon foreign markets? Answer is super simple. The answer is the practice of Japanese automobile industry in the US. The answer is go out, invest in Brazil, produce in Brazil, using Chinese technology, using Chinese management, set up factories like BYD in Brazil. And there will be many, many factories in Brazil. Okay, using Chinese technology, using Chinese management, hiring local people, generating employment, and produce in Brazil, and then helping Brazilian economy to reindustrialize and also reduce trade imbalance between Brazil and China.
Great. I will, as we are on time, I will stop here. Firstly, thanking you for your time. It was 1 hour that maybe we are going to have days to think about or to reflect. Thank you so much. It's late in China, so thank you for your generosity. I would like also for thank Ambassador Luis Augusto and all the team from Conselho Empresarial Brasil-China. And I remember for all those who were here, also thank you for your time, for your attention, for your questions. I think we addressed all questions, but if something is missing, we are going to address. And this webinar was recorded and will be for everybody in our YouTube page at Conselho Empresarial Brasil-China and our social medias. I hope to see you soon, and we keep talking. And I thank in the name of everybody that was here. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Truly my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank everyone who have watched us, and especially Professor David Daokui and Fabiana for their generous contributions. It was a splendid meeting, and I hope to be able to re-listen to those discussions that we had today. It was extremely useful for all of us, and the big challenge that we have now is to translate words into practice. But anyway, thank you very much once again for your generous contribution, Fabiana and David Daokui Li, for your participation here, which was most valuable for all of us. Thank you very much, and hope to see you in the near future.
Thank you. See you near